Welcome to another 5-Minute Friday. Today we're going to build on our video from last week where we talked about tones. Today we're going to get hands-on with the older style handheld radio from Bendix King, the DPH, which the P stands for portable. The other version you'll see is DMH, and the M stands for mobile, so I can help you remember the two. And then the second radio we'll be using is the K&G P150S, which for us is kind of our middle series radio right now. A lot of you haven't even seen the newest radios, which are the K&G 2s, but we have 3 of those floating out in the universe right now. So in front of you, you'll see the frequencies that are programmed into these radios. We'll go into the old radio, into the programming menu, and I'll actually prove to you that that's what's programmed into there. It's good too because the older radio is harder to get into. It's not as user-friendly. I shouldn't even say not as user-friendly. It's nowhere near as user-friendly. So everybody that comes back with one of the newer radios praises how easy it is to use. So let's see what's programmed into the DPH, which is the older style handheld. It has a receive frequency of 151.880. Has a receive tone of 100.0. A transmit frequency of 151.880. And a transmit tone of 100.0. So those tones could be different. They don't need to be the same. Don't get hung up there. Because it has the same receive and transmit frequency, we know it's a simplex channel. So if it's going to talk to another radio on that same channel, the second radio needs to have the same set of frequencies. So let's look at the newer style K&G P150S. Has the same receive frequency as the DPH. It has a receive tone of all zeros. Remember last week we talked about having all zeros in your receive tone means you're going to hear all traffic regardless of what transmit tone is coming in. On the transmit side, same exact frequency, 151.880, and a transmit tone of all zeros. If it transmits out with all zeros and another radio has a receive tone guard set to anything other than zeros, and it has that tone guard that's, say, active, and I'm using air quotes, right, because there's ways to inactivate it, but let's say it has something other than zeros and it's active. If it sends out a transmit tone of all zeros, the other radio will not open up. Okay, so burn this into your memory. I'm going to cut out, and we're going to come back to the old radio. Okay, welcome back. We have the old style DPH handheld. Let's go over a few of the buttons so we're somewhat familiar with it. Here we have the transmit power, low and high, channel scan, and priority scan. And if the toggle switch is pulled away from the writing, that means it's off. If it's towards the writing, it's on. And that remains true for all different radios. It's just sometimes the writing changes position, but toggle towards the writing on, toggle away from the writing off. Our channel selector knob. Here was that squelch switch I was talking about. You can see CG and squelch. Right now that knob is all the way to the left, and listen closely. You can hear that click. Now we've deactivated code guard. Anything beyond this, I'm just increasing the squelch until eventually it'll break open. The other thing you saw pop on was that yellow light. Remember, that's our busy channel indicator light. Because the squelch fully opened, the channel was on. It was essentially getting traffic, again in air quotes. Nothing was being transmitted, but it saw that channel as being open. If we go all the way back to the left, hear the click, code guard's been activated. That means whatever on the receive tone guard side is now active. And our volume selector knob. Okay. I've taken off the protector plate, which I'd recommend if you're going to do any hand programming, just because it makes it so much easier to get to, and you're not tempted to take something like a knife, bad idea by the way, and try to hit these buttons. Okay, you can use your fingers, it's not a problem. I just ask that you put on the protector plate, which I have sitting somewhere around here so you know what you're talking about. Put that back on after you're done doing this to protect this screen and the buttons as well from getting ripped off, because these are kind of a really lightweight, flexible rubber type material. So when we get to the programming menu, you would hold down the button on the programming cable, or if you have one of these little pucks, and function. And eventually you'll get this ID. I think it's 6 zeros, but all I do is I just hit it till I quit hearing the noise. Okay, then hit enter. Now we're into the programming menu. The double zeros, or the zero menus, have a bunch of extra functions. We'll go over that one day. But in order to scan through the different channels, or to, I should say, move through the different channels, you hit priority. Priority often moves you through things. Just kind of keep that in mind, priority and function. So in this case, we're dealing with channel 4. And now I'm going to hit function to move through the channel 4 features, if you will. So here we can see our receive frequency, like we had mentioned. That's analog. There's analog and digital. Everything's going to be analog. This is the receive tone, 100.0. That's all digital stuff. There's our transmit frequency. Again, we're analog. Transmit tone, all zeros. So I said the transmit tone was 100 before, so let's go over entering that. You first have to hit clear, even though it's all zeros. That allows you to enter in 100, hit enter. That's a digital. There's the name of the channel. There's the channel we're on. Hitting enter anymore doesn't do anything, so everything's been saved in. So now to get out, I have to cycle the radio off and back on. Okay, so now we've just proven what's in the programming menu, gone through that a little bit, and we'll come back and do some more. Okay, we're back. So these two radios, of course, have to be somewhat wildly different heights for my camera setup, so it's going to be a little tough, but work with me here. Okay, so here's our new radio. Remember, I said it has a transmit tone of all zeros. Okay, and this radio, the older style radio, has a receive tone of 100.0. So if I transmit out with no tone, and this is looking for 100 on the receive side, you shouldn't be able to hear anything on this radio. So fingers crossed, we'll get that right, okay? Okay, so you don't hear anything breaking on the channel, but what you do see is that yellow light, like I mentioned before. And let me show you the red light on this radio. What you heard was the other radio open up. That red light right here is your transmit light. Yellow light is the busy channel indicator. The newer radios, both lights are combined into this little guy here. I'll transmit for you. Sorry, it's hard to see through the camera. So it's red. On these, it's like a green. Yellow is the busy light indicator color. Okay, so nothing came through. We saw that something was being transmitted on this frequency though, because our light came on. How can we overcome that? I could go into the programming menu and program all zeros into the receive side, or this radio is pretty darn easy. Just take it anywhere past that click, and it's science, folks. Okay, so going off that code guard, we set it to all zeros, we can hear all traffic. Remember, that can be problematic, and those tones are really set up for you to make the most out of your radio, so you're not hearing traffic you don't want to hear. You don't want to hear anything on that channel, go back, activate the tone guards on that side, and boom, you don't hear it. Okay, so let's go over to the new radio. Okay, so here we are with the new radio. Remember, it has all zeros programmed in for both the transmit and receive tones. So even though the old radio has a transmit tone of 100, when I send that tone over, this radio is going to pick it up. It's going to allow you to hear what's being transmitted on that frequency because there's nothing on the receive side. So let me do something similar to what we did before on the other radio. And I'll show you a sneaky way to set a tone guard without having to go all the way into the programming menu and actually attach it to that channel. Okay, so we're interested in setting a receive tone in this case. I want to set it to something other than 100 because that's what's programmed into our other radio, so that wouldn't really prove anything to you. And I want to get a little farther away, and this is one of those science things, but if you have a tone that's super close to another tone, it can actually open it up without being exactly the same. So we're going to set it to 114.8. So our receive tone is now 114.8. If you hold down escape, no matter how far you're in, it'll eventually take you back to the start. And if I transmit, nothing comes up on this radio, but you can see that greenish yellowish light come on, indicating to us that something's being transmitted on this frequency, but we can't hear it. Okay, so I could go easily back into that menu and set the receive tone to all zeros, or I'll show you the other way like we mentioned in the last week's video. if I don't blow past it, is off hook mode. Okay, or here it's labeled off hook monitor, but once you go in, it's off hook mode. Just why not make it extra confusing? That's set to off. Let's turn it on. And remember what that does is it kind of harkens back to having a mobile mic that's on a hook that you take off the hook. And the way those are set up is that when you take the mic off the hook, it sets your receive tone guard to 0, regardless of what the programming has it set at. So remember, we set our programming tone, our receive tone, to something other than 0 and something other to 100. When we keyed up last time, we got the light telling us something's coming up on that frequency, but we didn't hear anything. So let's see what happens now. Boom. Okay, so what have we learned there? We learned about the lights on both these radios. Here's your transmit red light up here. Your yellow busy light indicator on this light, or I'm sorry, on this radio, the light is right up here in the corner. We learned to get into the programming menu, how to access those tones. What else did we go over? The sneaky little menu on this radio for transmit and receive tones, proving to you that having all zeros as your receive tone will allow you to hear anything on that channel, regardless of what the transmit tone is coming in, and how to set it to all zeros by using the off hook feature, and on this radio by using the squelch selector knob and that indent. Code guard into squelch mode, which sets your receive code guard to 0. Okay, I hope that helped kind of bring into clarity last week's video. If you have any questions, send them my way. And the best thing you can do by far is to get your hands on these radios and actually get into the menus and play with them. If you feel like you're worried you didn't get them back to the way they were when you took them out of the cabinet, just drop them on my desk and say, hey, Cap, this needs to be reprogrammed. Not a problem at all, okay? I would love for you guys to get your hands on these. That's the only way you're going to learn how to use them. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next week.